Welcome to Just Minding My Business Media and a Happy New Year to you. I am so happy to bring to the platform today Pete Newbig, who is the co-founded Empire Industries. He co-founded Empire Industries Realty and Property Management in Houston, Texas, which he sold to, how are we pronouncing that? Mynd
Mind,
Management? Mind?
mind management. Yep.
Okay. Where he served as VP of Eastern Operations. He is now the co-founder and CEO of VPM Solutions, an online platform connecting the real estate industry with virtual team members globally. Wow, that's awesome, Pete.
Thanks, Ida.
Very awesome. Okay, so tell us what that looks like. That's a virtual team globally. How's that work managing that?
Yeah. What it is, it's a platform that basically connects two people together. So if you think of it, it's like almost like Indeed, but for contractors that live outside the United States. If you're familiar with that. So when you are in a property management or real estate industry, you're looking for work that might be low level, low enjoyment type tasks, that repetitive. And instead of hiring somebody that's 15, 20 minutes from your office that is expensive, you can find somebody, you could pay them lower wage, but for them, it's actually higher wage because of their cost of living. And so things like maintenance coordinator, appointment setter, marketing, SEO, all of those things can be outsourced, and it's a direct hire. So you find them on our platform, you pay them through our platform. The platform takes 10%. So you get to manage them directly. So I don't have to manage all these people. I just have to manage the platform to make sure that people get paid and hours can get, timed, hours can get billed in correctly, all that things, billed correctly, all those
Oh,
things.
well, that is really awesome. So having that platform where people can get, you know, affordable support because I mean,
Yep.
I know it can be a lot doing all those different mundane things and hiring people to come into the office to do it is definitely expensive. So what's the number one? So it sounds like it increases productivity and profitability.
That's it. That's 100% correct. So if you think about it, especially before the pandemic, everybody had office space.
Mhm.
And after the pandemic, a lot of people didn't go back to office space. They ended up being virtual. And one of the things that I think was positive of the pandemic, there's very few things that were positive, but one of the things was that a lot of people realized that I don't have to actually drive to an office every day. We can actually still be productive being out of an office. And I know that maybe you're not as productive, I'll listen to arguments on that. But if you think about it, um, the number one cost to your business is people, and then number two used to be the actual brick and mortar.
Yes.
Secondarily, when I ran my property management firm, if I wanted to hire somebody, and I don't know about where you're at, Ida, but in Houston, Texas, there's over 4 million people here, and the roadways are built for about 1.5 million people. So even if I live 20 miles away, it might take me an hour to get to the office. So I was very limited into the type of person I can have that would come work for me, that would drive to the office.
Mhm.
Once I cut that cord, so to speak, and I decided that we can go remote, not only could I hire somebody in the other side of town, I could hire somebody on the other side of the state, inside the United States, or actually abroad. That allowed me to tap into a global market, meaning I can find better people because I'm not looking in a 20-minute, surrounding area. And I can find hopefully, bilingual people with college degrees or greater, or just, have a great attitude. And maybe they live in Mexico or the Philippines or Colombia or wherever. And I can pay them about one third the cost of a US team member, but get somebody who's bilingual, somebody who's really good, and they get paid more than if they were working locally in their market. So it becomes a win-win. So you're for the companies, we definitely bring down the overall. cost, right? And the productivity comes into play because now I can hire three people for one person. And so if you're in a service-based industry, if you're like, I don't know, maybe you own a landscaping business or you own some kind of property management firm or real estate. Now you can hire three people. One person can do your invoicing. One person can do your collections. One person can actually like instead of you doing the job coming back and then having to do the appointments and having to do all that stuff yourself because you can't afford somebody in the US, you can afford one person to do at least a part of those jobs, or you can hire three people for one US person to do all three of those jobs. So that's where the productivity really just jumps.
Yes, and I agree with you wholeheartedly because I had my VA is in the Philippines, and
There you go.
I would not be able to afford anybody in the United States because it's just too expensive. And working from home or working remotely is a win. I've done it for years. And the pandemic just kind of ramped it up. And when they wanted me to come back in the office, I was kicking and screaming because it was an hour and a half drive for me sometimes.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do that no more.
Yeah, I'll put some numbers to it, right? So in the Philippines, the average person in the Philippines, if they worked locally, would make about $2 an hour.
Mm,
Okay. On our platform, the average person, and we let the market kind of dictate, but the average hourly rate for somebody in the Philippines is about $7 an hour. We have people paying about $3, $4 an hour. We also have people paying $10, $15 an hour, but it's about seven is in the average. So
mhm,
if you think about that, $7 an hour is I don't even know, was that about 14,000 a year, $15,000 a year?
mhm,
So you can literally have three people working for you that are getting more money than they ever got paid in their life. So that brings a lot of loyalty. They don't want to leave, right? And they can do some of these amazing things that you like, man, I never knew that I can actually offload all this stuff. And then you free up your time to what I call leveling up. So because I have team members, because I can afford them, they can do the stuff in the business, which allows me to level up and be the CEO of my business, which means I'm working on the business. I'm working on strategic partnerships. I'm doing cool podcasts like this one, and I'm getting the word out there, and I'm being more strategy driven than I am tactical driven.
mhm. Absolutely. So when people come to you, how does the training, onboarding, and all that kind of stuff work?
That's a great question. So, people think that a VA is like a commodity, right? And I use the word VA, virtual assistant. I like calling them remote team members because they really an extension of your team and they really are your team member, right? But so many people just think of them like, oh, well, because I don't pay them very much, they're not really that useful, and I just need them to do like these checklists, and I'm going to treat them differently than my people in the United States. People are people and they want to be treated well regardless, right? So that's the first mistake people make. So I have to, that's the first thing. But then the next thing is, okay, they can do a lot more, but I do have to train them. So how do you do that? So we try to help with that. We have about 45 training courses on our platform. They're free. And if they take the training and they pass an exam, they get a certification on our platform. So example of some of the courses. Now we're property management heavy because that's my background. And we also have courses that are like basic SEO, basic marketing. We have some accounting courses, but mainly they're real estate courses. And then we partner with some vendors that support the industry, and we have courses on their products that they can get certified on.
Mhm,
So this is a great way of weeding out people that may or may not know. Like if they don't know anything about SEO and they take this course and they learn something about SEO, you can at least that they know a little bit about SEO, right? They said they have all this experience. We'll take this course and take this test. You know a little bit about SEO or marketing or property accounting. So that gets you somebody who at least understands that information. That is not a replacement for training for your company. You still have to train people, regardless if they are just a remote team member or if they're going to come to the office every day. The way I recommend is like just like we're doing now, we're doing a Zoom call. You do a Zoom, and you have to spend a lot of time with them. Let build the training, record the Zoom, and let those folks build the playbook or build the training manual.
Mhm.
The mistake I made early on in my career is as I was training my people, I was building the manual, and then I give them 100-page manual. They don't not only do they not read it, they don't even know how to kind of get around it. They don't know how to navigate it. Once I started training them, and they built a manual, and then I would test them the next day on what they learned, and they had to like teach me the next day. They got it more. The training takes a little bit longer, but the callbacks are less, right? So they retain more. And in most cases, now this is a lot of back office stuff, Ida. So in most cases, the training is less than 30 days, about an hour to hour and a half a day, 30 days. And I know a lot of people you're saying out there, like, I don't even have time right now to do my job, let alone training. I get it. I didn't either. When I did this, when I first hired my first people, I was working 12-hour days. With the training, it meant I was still working 12-hour days plus an hour of training. So I'm working 13-hour days, but I got all my time back. After about 60 days, I got all my time back in perpetuity. Plus, I didn't have to put 12-hour days anymore because I trained everybody. I was putting in 8-hour days. And then as I hired more people, I ended up putting like 4-hour days in. And so it's not easy. I wish I could tell you just take this magic pill and you can lose 40 pounds and just take this one course and you can learn everything about your company. It doesn't work that way. There's a little bit of work, regardless who you hire, whether they're remote or on site.
Absolutely, because even though people might know that particular discipline, they don't know how you run your company.
100%.
They don't know your system. So you
Yeah.
definitely
I'll
have
give you a great
to.
example. Like I've been in property management for almost 20 years now. I can get hired by a property management firm today and I know enough, but I don't know how they do their things. I still need to be trained.
Mhm.
I need to know their tech stack. I need to know how they do things. I need to know their policies. I need to know their processes.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So if real estate companies want to connect with you, how do they do so?
I'm still old school. I email is probably the best. Pete at vpmsolutions.com or just go to our website, vpmsolutions.com.
Mhm.
Um, I check my email. I don't have a VA or an executive assistant that looks at my email. I still do it all myself. And I'm on all the socials, but I'm kind of on them, but I'm not really on them. So I don't get on them very often, maybe once or twice a week. So email is probably the best way to get in touch with me.
Yes, I'm old school too. I check all my emails every day. I beg, I
I
just,
remember a world before email.
who you tell them? I remember it too. It was telephone, and then it was pages, not cell phones.
That's
And the
right.
first cell phone was the BlackBerry before
That's
the
right.
business.
That's right. And that BlackBerry would never go away. It was never going to be replaced.
Right. And it was a great tool. It very seldom broke down like these other phones do. It was pretty reliable. The pager
I'll
was
give you a
the
quick
worst though.
story. One of my first jobs, I created an email server for our company and we got on email and man, the top level management was kind of pushing away. Like they were resistant to it. 6 months later, that email server went down, and those same people that were resistant were at my door, like, you got to get this thing up and running. It went from like kind of like this offshoot to like it became like what do you call it? Like it was integral to the business.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Because I worked in IT, and if email went down, the CEO was in the data center. It coming up.
That's right. That's right. The main database can go down. He don't care less, but the email goes down.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. So let's talk about there's a little thing on here about selling your business because
Yep.
you've done that. So how do people prepare to sell their business?
So that's that another great question. So my when I sold the business, it actually happened really quick. So I wasn't able to prepare as well as I should have. So let's talk about this though. What should you do when you're looking to sell your business? And the first thing I would say is clean up all your debt. like, because when you get that check, you don't want to have to like, oh, now I got to pay this, I got to pay that. So you
Mm.
got to think of everything, right? So if you have like a bunch of debt, like you really want to make sure like you clean that off. Secondly, is find out how you get sold, how you get sold. What I mean by that is like, is it X times revenue? Is it X times EBITDA? Is it top line revenue? What does it look like? And then if you can prepare, so for example, in property management, you get paid on a lot of times you get paid on top line revenue. Well, what I would have done to really prepare is I would have brought on more properties to manage and not have been so picky if I knew I was going to sell within a certain time frame. That makes sense. If I'm going to hold my business, I'm not going to take on quote unquote bad business. I'm going to take on, in this case, I may take on some bad business because I can deal with it because I'm going to sell the business in like less than a year or something like that. The other thing I realized is have your financials in order.
Yes.
As they go through a due diligence, if your financials are not in order, and that includes your balance sheet from like day zero, if you like my balance sheet was all messed up because I didn't know what I was doing when I first started the business, and the balance sheet carries over, right? It's not like a P&L, which kind of changes every year. The balance sheet just kind of carries over. So we had to really clean up not only our balance sheet, our P&Ls, but we had to tie everything together. So reconcile everything, including like if you have any contracts out there, like reconcile that. Like just make sure, like for us, security deposit was big. We had $1 million of security deposits. I had to make sure that was reconciled, right? So there's lots of little things like that to prepare for it. But the most important thing, Ida, is mentally you have to be prepared. What are you going to do next? What happened to me is it's everything happened so quick. When we sold, I had more money in my pocket than I ever had in my life. I had a job with the company that bought me, paying me more than I was paying myself when I owned the business, and I was more miserable than I ever been in my life.
Wow.
And it really was because I didn't want to work for the company, but I took the job because I didn't know what else to do. Now, if I sold for 50 million, I think I would have been okay. But I sold for like five, and I only owned like 45% of the company. And then you have taxes, right? So, and I think I was 48 years, 49 years old, something like that. Not enough to retire on. You have to do something. What is the next thing you're going to do? And if it's going to stay with the company, you have to understand you're not the business owner anymore. You're an employee. And as much as they tell you you have this, you can move the needle or you can make these changes, typically it goes on deaf ears. So if I could do it all over again, I would have taken a little bit less money. I would have taken all the money up front. I wouldn't have done a 2, 3, 4 year payout. I wouldn't have taken a job. But more importantly, I would have had my next adventure kind of laid out for me. So I really was in a dark place, which is kind of crazy because everybody thinks, man, if I just get the money, I'm going to be super happy. And didn't work out that way for me.
And it never works out that way because money is, like you say, you have to have the full plan. The money is always understood. And
The money is just a tool to do
yes.
your next thing. And I love building businesses. And when I didn't have a business to build anymore, it really, it really affected me. I'm not the guy that's going to go out and like I get a bunch of money and I could go cruising for 6 months a year. This is not me. I like building businesses, and when I didn't have a tool to tinker or to build, I really got depressed.
Yes, yes. I definitely could see that because I'm not that way either. I'm not just gonna retirement is like, what's my next adventure?
Yep.
That's how I look at it. So again, how do people connect?
Yeah, just email me, Pete at vpmsolutions.com. And if you're just looking for, I want to see, maybe post a job, look through the portfolios or the profiles, you can go to vpmsolutions.com and create a free profile yourself.
Okay.
So everything we do is free, except for once you hire somebody, then we charge 10% on the contractor, the remote team member. So for the company side, it's all free.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. So
Hmm.
that's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer. At least check us out, right?
Yes, absolutely. So when you're not doing this, tell us what you do, because I read some stuff about marathons and things like that. So let's talk about that a little bit.
So yeah, I used to actually be an Ironman triathlete. So I used to do the 2.4 mile swim, the 112-mile bike, and the 26.2 mile run. And I have not done that in quite some time. So I kind of retired from that. Then I was doing marathons. Then I hurt my back. Now, you're gonna laugh at me, but this is the definition of old. I walk. I walk about 7 miles a day, every day, and I go to the gym and I lift about 3 times a week. So I went from this, endurance athlete to the old man walk and some weight training.
So at least you're still staying active. That's what's most important because
And
walking.
my wife still runs half marathons, so I have to chase her around every once in a while.
Well, you still moving. That's what's important.
That's it. That's the most important thing. Yeah.
Well, Pete, this has been very eye-opening. I've never met a business management doing management the way that you're doing it. So this is really definitely uh, in the now thing because remote is really where it's at. I'm listening to
We're
the
we're in a global
president.
economy, right, Ida?
Yeah, I'm listening to the incoming president. Everybody going back in the office. For what? I mean, I didn't realize some of these buildings are empty. We got a housing shortage. Repurpose.
Yep. I think that the the uh the argument for being in the office is like creativity and really, building culture. It is a challenge when you have all. So I run VPM from Houston, Texas, and I have, I think, 11 team members, three partners. So let's call it 15 people total.
Mhm.
Only my wife and I are here in Houston. Everybody else is either in Dallas, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Colombia, Philippines, Dominican Republic, Mexico. I'm sure I'm missing a country or two. So we're all over. And the one of the challenges I have as a CEO is to really keep that culture intact.
Mhm.
And right now, for 10, 12 people, 15 people, it's not that difficult. We get on a meeting every day. We have a daily meeting. We have company meetings all online,
Mhm.
and we all get together once a year at one of the big conferences. Now, that's easier for 15 people. When we get to 150 people, I don't know how to do that. Like,
Yeah.
hopefully, I pass the mail on and give it to some CEO that really knows how to build $100 million company. I can probably build a $10 million company. But if you are looking at remote, that is something to be concerned with. I know that the Facebooks of the world and the tech companies, they're moving people back into, like Google, they're moving back people back into the office because they are losing that creativity and
Mhm.
they are losing some of that. Because, I mean, those tech companies, that's what they're built on, right? What's the new thing? How do we keep innovating? And so I think there's definitely an argument for that. However, the amount of money that as a smaller firm, the amount of money I save on brick and mortar, the amount of money I save on hiring people that are like within 15, 20 minutes from me, I'll take the trade-off and then just really push the culture down based on our actions on daily meetings, company meetings, and get-togethers. And
Yeah.
if you save a bunch of money on brick and mortar, you can have everybody come into the States. Maybe
Right.
not you Filipino folks, but because that's a long flight, but anybody in Central or South America can come up to the States and you can have like a big team building. And what we do is we have a national conference that we go to we have an exhibit in a booth. We have people working and we spend a couple of days afterwards all just doing team building stuff.
Okay. So that's a plan. That's definitely a plan. Well, Pete, it has been great talking to you. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm
Thanks, Adam.
definitely looking forward to many more. So
Thank
thank
you.
you. And also, audience, thank you.